Yep. There you go. You took the pen.
All right. Everyone, make sure you've written your name in terms of the first page of Sula, please. First page of Sula is right here. You see, oh, I'm not even
This one forward.
Okay. Lady, stop talking. Down.
We're good. I'm just a little bit.
Okay. Everyone, today. Wait. Today we were originally going to start class by discussing lust, which was where you read last night, but I decided not to do that because I'm going to just jump right in to Sula and give you as much time as possible, not just to get this one homework in class, but to give you your own time to work on it as well. So we're going to start reading this together. We're going to start annotating it together. One thing, with this reading, you are not receiving reading questions of any kind. You are tasked with doing this reading and annotating. Every week I will check annotations and that will add up to a test grade for quarter 4. So if you do not annotate, you are failing a test grade for this class. For safety. And they better be effective annotations. I'm not looking for little underlines and highlights. I'm looking for your thought process on paper as you read, point out characterization, thematic ideas, characters, all of that stuff, figurative language. You said metaphors, find them and write them down. Okay? Yes. Every week I'm going to check. No. All together they will be one test. Nope. At all. The only guided questions you will have are the entities. The entity questions. Those are the questions that will guide our understanding.
Why would test grade?
You want more?
Yeah. Wait, are we gonna have actual tests?
Yeah. The first one is tomorrow.
What?
Oh.
What?
Wow, you have tests in school?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a test. So you're gonna have a reading quiz. You did it for you did it for Frankenstein.
That's bad.
It's just about this reading. The reading that we're going to do today in class and we'll do for home. So today in class we're going to get through about pages 3 to 6. For homework, everyone, Darius, you are not looking. Oh, 7 to 16, read and annotate. The homework is tomorrow when you come to class. The first thing you're doing is taking your reading list on all of these pages. All right.
I just think you help me.
We are going to start reading and annotating together. We should be part 1, and we should be on the very, very first page. What I would like to annotate for is what I've written down. Annotations, theme, characterization, figurative language. Yes. I do not. I ran out of questions. I used to passes. I don't see you writing down anything.
I am writing.
Thank you, Jawad. Yusef, Viola, Moses, Iad. Again, we are annotating for theme, characterization, and any figurative language. This first part of the first chapter details the setting. That's why I've written setting there. This is going to explain the setting of the book and why the setting is so important.
Do you write that right there too?
What do you think? Do you think anything you write down is what you need to help you understand annotation? You've done it before. You need to start. Okay.
I can't read that.
Then figure it out.
On page 3. Turn to page 3.
That's page 3.
Okay,
Right here.
we're going to start reading.
Oh, thanks. I was seeing the page numbers.
A lot of the things
Well, he wants you on
you
this
need to
page.
answer
So
for,
you
I'm
need to
going to
put,
say, and I'm not going to model.
being,
If you don't
not
get
figure.
them or write them down because you're off the
No.
model.
Oh, yeah.
You
That's
need
on
to
you.
write
That's on the
figure
quiz.
of language.
Here we go.
Language.
Let's begin reading.
Characterization.
Everyone, please track your papers, your pages. Let's start. In that place where they tore the nightshade and blackberry patches from their roots to make room for the Medallion City golf course, there once was a neighborhood. It stood in the hills above the valley town of Medallion and spread all the way to the river. It is called the suburbs now, but when black people lived there, it was called the bottom. We've already gotten to very important things. We're just looking at me and not annotating for it.
Underline all the way.
So, Yusuf, why aren't you on the same page?
I don't know.
It says who.
It is called the suburbs now, but when black people lived there, it was called the bottom. One road, shaded by beeches, oaks, maples, and chestnuts, connected it to the valley. The beeches are now gone, and so are the pear trees where children sat and yelled down through the blossoms to passerby. Generous funds have been allotted to level the stripped and faded buildings that clutter the road from the Medallion up to the golf course. They are going to raise the time and a half pool hall, where feet in long tan shoes once pointed down from chair rungs. A steel ball will knock to dust Irene's palace of cosmetology, where women used to lean their heads back on the sink trays and doze while Irene lathered new Nile into their hair. Men in khaki work clothes will pry loose the slats of Reva's grill, where the owner cooked in her hat because she couldn't remember the ingredients for that. Let's stop right there. I have the first sentence underlined because it really sets an important tone and communicates a lot here. So, in that place where they tore the nightshade and the blackberry patches from their roots to make room for the Medallion City golf course, there once was a neighborhood. What is the name of that neighborhood? What is the name of this neighborhood, James Blackburn?
The bottom?
The bottom. This place is called the bottom. Who lives in the bottom? Jane Sanders? Black people. The bottom is where black people live. So I want you to already think about that. What's it called?
The bottom.
The bottom. What does that put in your head already? If you live in a neighborhood called the bottom, what do you think of it?
Means you're like below everybody.
Below.
Or the projects.
Okay, maybe projects. Maybe like lower class. Like,
Lower class,
there's already
another.
something very
Yeah.
intentional about the way Morrison uses naming and labels. This place where the black people live is called the bottom. Over time, what happened to the bottom? What happened to it? Nice, Sean? Became a suburbs, and they're going to destroy even more to make room for what? A city golf course. So this black neighborhood is now been destroyed, and they have suburbs now and a golf course. Okay, let's make sure we have all of this jotted down. There's a vocabulary word here. They are going to raise, R-A-Z-E. What does that vocabulary word mean, Khaled? It's a word from this week. Or last week, actually. What does raise mean, Viola? R-A-Z-E.
To destroy.
Hey, stop calling out.
I didn't call.
You did.
Moses.
Circle.
To destroy. Very good.
Very
To destroy. So the bottom has been raised. R-A-Z-E-D. Is the narrator from the bottom, or were they from the bottom? You can infer something pretty strongly here. Yeah, what do you think? Why do you think that this narrator was from the bottom, or at least went to the bottom a lot and knew a lot of people there?
The time and a half to fall into the sky.
So it's describing these very specific places in the bottom, and also, what is it describing about these places and the people who work at these places? What is it describing about the people who work at these places too? No. You're assuming something that's not in the text. What does the text say? We can wait. That means more homework for you at home. But I need everyone to be all in here. What does it say about some of these people who work in some of the shops at the bottom? Why?
Where is it? Many there.
So listen, you're all are overthinking this.
Wait, where women used to be in their head back in the same trades?
Who would know exactly like how these people work and what makes them work? The speaker and somebody what? Somebody was there. Somebody was there a lot. Who else would know the name of the shop, the owner, and how the owner liked to cook? Do you have a favorite restaurant? Do you have a place you like to go to eat a lot? Do you know how the owner likes to cook? So if someone knows that, how many times have they been there probably? A lot. Whoever the speaker is, they have been to these places a lot. They were probably from the bottom. You can definitely make that inference, okay? If you want to write that down as an annotation, you can. The narrator certainly knows a lot about the bottom. Thomas, not off to a good start. We need to fix it. Also, what is the significance again of Toni Morrison having this place called the bottom? It's a very negative connotation, right? Very negative connotation. Okay. So we already have a basic understanding of the setting of the book in a town called the bottom. In a neighborhood called the bottom, the town of what? Suburban is not a town. Suburbia. That is not a town.
Narrator is also from the bottom.
Say it. Medallion City. Medallion City has a neighborhood called the bottom. This is where the black people used to live, and now there are suburbs and a golf. And they're going to make room for a golf. Let's continue reading. The next paragraph really in detail the people who live in the bottom. Here we go. There will be nothing left of the bottom. The footbridge that crossed the river is already gone. But perhaps it is just as well. Since it wasn't a town anyway. Just the neighborhood where on quiet days people in valley houses could hear singing sometimes, banjos sometimes. And if a valley man happened to have business up in those hills, collecting rent or insurance payments, he might see a dark woman in a flowered dress doing a bit of a cakewalk, a bit of a black bottom, a bit of messing around to the lively notice of a mountain. So it's saying that sometimes valley men come to the bottom. Who can we infer as the valley man? The valley man who comes to collect rents or insurance payments yourself?
The landlord.
Let's get more specific, Darius.
Black people.
Maybe, but I think we can make a safer inference. White people. The people from the valley are the white people who come to collect money, insurance, all of that. Let's continue reading. Her bare feet would raise the saffron dust that floated down on the coveralls and bunion-split shoes of the man breathing music in and out of his harmonica. The black people watching her would laugh and rub their knees, and it would be easy for the valley man to hear the laughter and not notice the adult pain that rested somewhere under the eyelids, somewhere under their head wraps and soft felt hats, somewhere in the palm of the hand, somewhere behind the frayed lapels, somewhere in the sinews curve. He'd have to stand in the back of Greater St. Matthew's and let the tenor's voice dress him in silk, or touch the hands of the spoon carvers, who had not worked in 8 years, and let the fingers that danced on wood kiss his skin. Otherwise, the pain would escape him, even though the laughter was part of the pain. A shucking, knee-slapping, wet-eyed laughter that could even describe and explain how they came to be where they were. We stop there. How does Morrison describe the people of the bottom? Iron? Or what else? Let's get more specific. Okay, it's not the same thing. That they do live in a certain poverty. How else are they described here? What are some of the actions that the people in the house do? They seem happy. Tell me where you see that in the text.
Oh, I mean, kind of like, they kind of do for that because,
Tell me where.
they're laughing, you know that?
Okay, they laugh, they have fun, there's some of them are dancing. What else? What else? Thomas, what do you think? They do. So these people laugh. Is there something else that the narrator notices about the people at the bottom besides their joy and their laughter? The what? Say it again. The pain. It's a community of people. There's laughter, there's joy, but behind those eyes there is what again? There's pain. Why could there be pain behind the eyes of everyone at the bottom? Sean?
For what they go through, to live the body, so they don't, they can't have enough money to live a stable food.
Perhaps because of their circumstances. Maybe they have some joy and laughter, but they know where they are in society. So there is a pain. Also, this is like before the 1920s. What is race relations like at this time? What are race relations like at that time? Segregation, Jim Crow laws. It's not a great time for Black Americans. It's a terrible time. Moving forward, there are a lot of instances and uses of the N-word. I am not going to be saying the word as we read them. I'm simply going to say the N-word for obvious reasons.
Can I read it?
No, and you should not want to just read it because
White people.
I don't have to stay up here and just explain it. You understand. And that word means very, very strong, very charged, very negative feelings, emotions, connotations to a lot of people. And some people can be very, very upset. So let's not, okay? Uh-huh. So, here we go. Now, this paragraph is going to start discussing the history of the bottom. How did this place get its name? Why did the Black people start to live at the bottom? We're going to get it now in this paragraph. Here we go. A joke. An N-word joke. That was the way it got started. Not the town, of course, but that part of the town where the Negroes lived. The part they called the bottom, in spite of the fact that it was up in the hills. Just an N-word joke. The kind white folks tell when the mill closes down and they're looking for a little comfort somewhere. The kind colored folks tell on themselves when the rain doesn't come or comes for weeks and they're looking for a little comfort somehow. This is very important what we're about to read. This is a lot of the history of the town here. A good white farmer promised freedom and a piece of bottom land to his slave if he would perform some very difficult chores. When the slave completed the work, he asked the farmer to keep his end of the bargain. Freedom was easy. The farmer had no objection to that. But he didn't want to give up any land. So he told the slave that he was very sorry that he had to give him valley. He had hoped to give him a piece of the bottom. The slave blinked and said he thought valley land was bottom land. The master said, "Oh no, see those hills? That's bottom land, rich and fertile." "But it's high up in the hills," said the slave. High up from us, said the master, but when God looks down, it's the bottom. That's why we call it so. It's the bottom of heaven, the best land there is. So the slave pressed his master to try to get him some. He preferred it to the valley, and it was done. The N-word got the hilly land, where planting was backbreaking, where the soil slid down and washed away the seeds, and where the wind lingered all through it, which accounted for the fact that white people lived on the rich valley floor in that little river town in Ohio, and the blacks populated the hills above, taking small consolation in the fact that every day they could literally look down on the white folks. So, what did the white farmer do? What did the white farmer do? Okay. So, what is the good land? What's the good land? What's the good land? Yeah, what's the good land? The valley land is the good land. The bottom land is up in the hills. Ironically, it's up in the hills, but it's called the bottom. That's the bad land. So, how does he convince the slave to not go for the valley land, but to want the bottom? How does he convince him? Okay, so he says like, it's up high, you can look down on the white people. What else does he say, Nashon?
That God looks down upon it.
That God looks on it. What else? What else does he say? He didn't say that God looks down on it. When God looks down, it's the bottom. That's what we call it. So it's what? It's the bottom of heaven. And that's how he made the slave who was promised land want and covet and beg for land. And was this land good?
No.
How do we know? Where's the evidence that proves this was not good land? Tyron? Very good. Right here. Thank you, Chiron. The planting was backbreaking. So is the soil fertile for growth? No, it's rough soil. They can't really farm or do much up there. Where the soil slid down and washed away the seeds that were planted. People try to grow trees and fruits and farm there, but the water just pushes all the soil down the hill to the valleys. Whose benefit, by the way?
And on the side, the land,
The valley
good
people.
land is valley land.
So once again, how did the white farmer get the slave to go for the worst piece of land? What did he have to do?
On the bad land
Valley.
By showing him like all the
is
benefits
the bottom.
of like, you know,
Didn't show him the benefits.
not really, but like.
Moses? Again, there's better words we can use. What? What else? He lied to him. He manipulated him.
Lie is such a strong word. He just persuaded him.
He knew that the land was bad. He knew that the land was bad. And he said, no, you don't understand. He says this is the best land that there is. Look right here. The bottom, land, rich and fertile. Is it rich and fertile? No. He lied to him. This is a straight, bold-faced lie. He manipulated the slave. And as soon as the slave heard of, oh my God, it's like the bottom of heaven. It's rich and fertile land. It says here,
Yeah.
so the slave pressed his master. What does that mean? Ben, please give me this land, please. Why did this work on the slave? Why did it work? Why could the slave be manipulated? Why did it work? Jake Flowers?
It was to because he wouldn't really disobey. He wouldn't really disagree with his master.
I don't know if we can safely assume that. Yeah? Say it again, louder. Uneducated. He's uneducated. This is a slave. He does not have access to education. He doesn't know anything. So, he was manipulated into thinking that this was good land. And then when all of the black people heard about it, they all begged for it and then they got it. And then what did they end up getting? Just bad land. And what's the only consolation about this land? The only bright spot about this land for them? they look down on the white people. So if I look down on you, what am I doing? Not literally looking down, but if I say like, I look down on him because of this, like, what am I saying? In a way, I'm superior. They are inferior. So in a way, that's not really consolation, but does it really matter? Not really. After he comes back. Now, spring tissue bag, please. So now, let's look at something very interesting then. Starting with this paragraph, there's a little bit of like a perspective shift as to what happens to the people who live in the bottom, the black people. Here we go. You're welcome. Still, it was lovely up in the bottom. After the town grew and the farmland turned into a village, and the village into a town, and the streets of Medallion were hot and dusty with progress, those heavy trees that sheltered the shacks up in the bottom were wonderful to see. And the hunters who went there sometimes wondered in private if maybe the white farmer was right after all. Maybe it was the bottom of heaven. The black people would have disagreed, but they had no time to think about it. They were mightily preoccupied with earthly things and each other, wondering even as early as 1920 what Shadrach was all about. What that little girl Sula, who grew into a woman in their town, was all about. And what they themselves were all about, tucked up there in the bottom. So, it's bad land, right? How did the black people eventually come to think of it? What? Yeah, as a gift. Do they think of it in a good, positive way eventually, you said? Yeah, the bottom of heaven, but I'm focusing on this last paragraph that we read at the very bottom of page 5 to the top of page 6. How do they view this land now? Okay, Ron?
They do it as if it was dead.
So was it like okay for them to eventually grow to like it? They got used to it. They got used to it. Why did they get used to it? Because it's their land?